it! A map victory and a grand final for the Chinese team!
And you thought history was just being made in Riyadh. Not going to be the case at all. Welcome back to the Global Gaming Network channel, the place for all of your news to do with esports across the world. My name is Andy. Joining with me, as always, is Chris. And as I was talking about, it's not just Riyadh. We also had FISSURE Playground kick off. History being made across the globe. How are you today, my friend?
I'm doing great. We had a lot to go, and we have a lot to go over, but I'm ready to jump into FISSURE Playground first. As you said, we're not going straight to Riyadh yet. We had some Counter-Strike action over the weekend.
Yeah, FISSURE Playground, of course, is the new kid in the playground, I guess, as it may be, pun absolutely intended. This is the first FISSURE Playground that we had completely kick off, and the finals came down to Astralis versus TYLOO. It was a very fun series to think about, especially with IEM Cologne, hint, hint, all the way at the end of the month. But here's how the groups did pan out. You do have some household favorite names throughout the entirety of this. MIBR, Virtus.pro sucks to suck in Group C, but still, as far as all the winners are concerned, if you won 2 matches, you made it to that playoff bracket.
Yeah, exactly. And then we have a lot of these teams that we were expecting maybe to go into that playoff bracket, didn't make it. But this is what we have at the end of the day. These were our quarterfinals. Gamer Legion versus Bet Boom, Astralis versus Linvision, TYLOO versus 3D Max, and then Sol versus Complexity. And boy, did it maybe not play out how many were expecting.
Yeah, shout out Saw, man. Saw coming in towards the mix. A lot of untapped potential as far as that roster is concerned, led by Malzauza, a former Overwatch professional player, now turned Counter-Strike coach. It's absolutely insane. But they had the unfortunate second round going up against TYLOO. And, well, if you've been watching the entire event throughout the entirety of the weekend, albeit having a fill-in, this certainly felt like it was TYLOO's tournament to lose. They beat them 2-0 within that semifinal, and same to be said for Astralis taking down Bet Boom on the other side. And as I alluded to, that sets up our grand finals up on the main stage for Astralis versus TYLOO.
Yeah, and what a main stage it would be, especially for TYLOO. They were saying that they wanted to go against Astralis so that they could get revenge for Linvision, who ended up falling to them in that quarterfinals. And they would start out really well, especially going into Inferno here. Actually, they would take a little bit. They would get some of those rounds, but it would be Astralis' map to take. They looked really good on it, as we do see here. Hoshi going against Mercury and G. But this is a TYLOO team that has come and said that they wanted to make waves for Chinese Counter-Strike. I think this is a great place to start.
It absolutely is. I mean, we got a little bit of taste of that if you go all the way back towards the Blast Austin Major with teams like Linvision getting the revenge here, to your point there, thanks to G and Co here. But still, I think that they bring a certain different flavor as far as Counter-Strike is concerned. Very aggressive was the opening few rounds here in Inferno, and it almost ended up going all the way towards overtime. These last few moments, Astralis, they had the weapons advantage, numbers advantage. I mean, Musia, only so much you could do in the post-plant situation. Was going to get traded regardless from Pit, and it still didn't stop Astralis from taking their map pick on map 1 of Inferno.
Yeah, and then we move over to Nuke, and this would be TYLOO, where they start to shine. Again, another strong start coming out for them, but this time they would only limit to Astralis to 4 rounds in total. An absolutely banger coming out of them to help even up this series. And this is kind of where we start to see them start popping off a bit, especially JamYoung. Oh, just a great game in total. 21 kills dropped in this game, and then backed up by G as well with those op plays. Just amazing.
That absolutely was, yeah. Hushi, only so much he could do. Again, Astralis, shout out them for bringing in Hushi as their full-time IGL now from a lot of different tournaments in the past. But as you already drew it up perfectly, Chris. I mean, you go in towards Nuke, and TYLOO off of a 10-round taking from the Inferno pick that they may not have felt the most comfortable on. Now they are in the driver's seat. You want to talk about confidence, a 13-4 win versus Astralis leading in towards Mirage. Could have been a toss-up at the end of it, but really a 50-50 as far as these two teams' history is concerned on this map.
Yes, and now we kind of start to see what you'd expect out of the grand finals, where the teams started getting, back a little bit closer. This one would go into that overtime that we almost saw on the first map of Inferno. They would go into it, but TYLOO, though, they just... Once they get a stranglehold, they kind of seem to just be able to take it. And this is where we're starting to see them emerge as one of these teams maybe to watch out for as we start going into some of the majors later on in the year, especially going into IEM Cologne, where they'd end up winning 16-14. Once again, JamYoung, 30 kills on this map, just completely popping off.
Yeah, here's the last few moments towards the beginning of the side swap, and then here's the last few moments before we actually got all the way in towards overtime. Astralis had to rip 5 rounds in a row on the T side just to be able to find themselves in a favorable position on the other side of the bomb to be able to push overtime. But then it pushed TYLOO that much further. They answered back with 4 in response, and then we got in towards overtime. The last few moments trying to creep forward for the retake, not going to work at all. The last 2 rounds taken on the T side for G and Co, as they're going to be able to put themselves in a position to now lead in the grand finals 2-1.
Yes, and we would go to map number 4. As you see, we are on Ancient. It would actually be TYLOO picking up the first 5 rounds in a row before Astralis was able to answer back. As you see, though, it does get a little bit even up going into the later stages of this map, but 10 would be the most amount of rounds that Astralis would win. After that, we would have TYLOO finally picking up the final rounds needed to pick up the win here. And again, it would be JamYoung leading the kills, 27. This man cannot be stopped.
No, absolutely not at all. I mean, it really does say something for Ancient. I've experienced it in a lot of different facets, whether you're playing Face It online or even in Premier. If you get 5 straight, you're typically going to feel pretty comfortable to be able to win the map. And shout out all of TYLOO, doing it for the entirety of the region, putting it on their back, being able to get the trade there for Lin Vision at the end, lifting the trophy, and then, of course, for JamYoung as well. He was the MVP at the end of it, a 3-1 win versus Astralis after losing the first map in a very close affair. To fight back the way that they did, backed by JamYoung's stellar performance, you got to tip your hat to them.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see what they do going forward. As you said, they get that revenge for Lin Vision. They got the revenge for Lin Vision, but also, as he said, they are pushing the boundaries of what Chinese Counter-Strike can do, and that's what we want to see. We want to see more of that international competition, especially with some of the majors coming up. I'm excited to see how they do, especially in these first couple of rounds.
Be very, very fun to be able to see how that all plays out. Again, we do have IEM Cologne towards the end of the month, and a lot of these teams that we did have here for FISSURE Playground number 1 will be in attendance for all of that. We'll go over that in a short amount of time for the rest of the show. But until then, you might want to check out this one.
Oh my goodness. TSM absolutely shutting it down. That flag is already on the move here. TSM.
Maybe not the happiest clip in the world as far as the scoreboard is concerned, but nonetheless, join with me on Today in Esports is Nick Lava, the head coach of Envy's Halo team. Nick, you've had yourself quite a month down to this last week or so. Qualifiers, LVT Pro League. What haven't you guys been up to, man?
Man, we've been doing a little bit of everything. We're staying busy, getting ready for Salt Lake City, leaving in 10 days. Couldn't be more excited.
Yeah, you guys just concluded one not even about a month and a half ago as well. We saw Optic being able to lift the trophy from a lower bracket round 1, but still Salt Lake City is right around the corner. Halo as tenured as ever. Open bracket season is upon us as always, and it should be a very fun time as well. If you're unfamiliar as far as Halo is concerned, the major always has a very long road behind it. Nick, can you elaborate a little bit what we got going on here?
Yeah, this was the qualifier from about a week ago. We had some of the top teams play. Outside of the top 4, everybody was able to play, and we had quite an interesting result. We had FaZe sign up and then double FF to get Group B, which we'll look at here in a second, but Complexity looking hot as ever, taking that one down. Cloud9 followed by Envy at number 3, but here's how the pools played out. Envy, we're going to be in Pool A with Optic, Unreal, Nightmare in losers bracket 2, but I don't know why FaZe made the decision that they did to put themselves in this crazy pool number 2 with Nemesis and TSM and the rest of the groups there, as you see on screen.
The Nemesis one is really interesting to me because you're pretty comfortable to be there if you are FaZe, and Nemesis have been very, very good. They just won the European qualifier to find themselves as the 7th seed, to be in there with TSM as well. And in my humble opinion, I genuinely think that they're probably the second, if not one of the top favorite teams to be in there. They're very tenured. Wutum is absolutely gross. I'm also a mouse and keyboard shill, so I'm willing to lean towards Wutum, but SLG is also complementing that play really, really well. Yeah. I think TSM, ever since even the Pro League you see, the qualifiers, they're on the back foot. They got to be feeling pretty darn scared themselves, but I don't know. I'll agree with you as well. I don't know why FaZe did what they did.
Yeah, it was an interesting move nonetheless. We were sitting there and watching the day unfold on Saturday, and we're like, yeah, we didn't even know if SSG was going to sign up to get that 4 seed, and then they sign up, and then FaZe is like, oh, well, we're not even going to play because we're guaranteed pools. But by them not playing, they knew what pool that they were going into. They knew they were going into that TSM and Nemesis pool, and I want to stay away from that thing as far as possible.
Yeah, I don't blame you whatsoever. Wutum and Nemesis are opening round Reapers, and here's a nice little clip coming through towards the qualifiers, I believe. We have Complexity, Ryan Noob, some familiar voices behind this call as well, but still, it's very, very funny. They point out one thing in particular that you and I can relate to, Nick. This guy's old, and he's doing this.
Yeah, he's actually, ever since these past 2 events, Ryan Noob has looked like the best player on complexity, and it's a crazy thing to say, is one, if not the oldest player in the league right now, and he has this complexity team dialed from start to finish, and it's great, and couldn't be more excited for those guys over there. Shout out Ashes, but man, they're looking good right now, and obviously we're on the opposite side of the pools from them as well.
so you can slightly be a little bit of a fan of them. So now we have Zero Tenacity and versus Team Nemesis. This is from the European qualifier, specifically from Wumtum's perspective. 13 and 12 right here, gets the melee. Mouse and keyboard things, by the way, just fully turned around.
I haven't even seen that.
I don't even know how. One of them had to have been a ninja, at least the first one for sure. But yeah. That's mouse and keyboard things right there.
Yeah, that's one thing we know in Halo Infinite. Sometimes you get the back smack and you don't get credit for it, but he did there with the mouse and keyboard, and that looked great. And same with Zero Tenacity, looking great with the Jimbo has went to the bench / assistant coach role, and Bastio stepping up in a big way there. And those games have been a lot closer than they have in the past between those 2 teams. But Nemesis coming out on top as always.
Wouldn't be European Halo if Jimbo wasn't nearby. Let's put it that way.
Ain't that the truth?
But those are all the qualifiers that we do end up having. We do have a lot of LVT matches that have been going on. The LVT Pro League, Nick, this is something that a lot of Halo competitors, coaches, players have been very excited for. And it's a jam-packed schedule where you guys are playing best of 7s versus each other.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been amazing, almost forced practice / scrims and high quality, $1,000 best of 7s, which actually elevates it even more. But some crazy teams to see there at the bottom. Space Station and TSM both being 0-3 is absolutely bonkers to me. That one of them might not make it to the LAN in LA.
Yeah, that's actually crazy. I mean, would you say omit being 0-3 given the tenured players and other names that they have surrounded by them? Is that fair, or is it just TSM and Space Station that jumps off the page for you?
I'll admit being down there kind of, unfortunately, with the amount of other talent that's on that page is kind of expected. They were one of the, if not the last team to make it into the LVT Pro League, so seeing them down there makes sense. But TSM and Space Station, I expected them to be in the middle of the pack, and them being down there fighting for their lives is crazy to me.
So the bottom 2, just so everybody's aware, like Nick was talking about, if you're the bottom 2 at the end of all these best of 7s, you do not go towards that LAN. So it almost feels like we're going to a photo finish for that 6th position, maybe towards the end of it, because we're running towards the end of these best of 7s. So really every single match is going to matter going forward. We got a couple clips to go over for you guys as well throughout some of these matches. One of which you saw through the opening. It is TSM versus Envy. I watched this one live, Nick, and I bet you were running out of cuticles, weren't you?
Yeah, no, this one hurts, and this is one of those maps where if you get stuck being spawn trapped, you are in for a world of hurt. And as Tali picks up this kill tack and almost got a little bit more with precision in cave there, but they were able to finish this out. But yeah, we got our last laugh at the end of this one.
Yeah, no, you sure did. I mean, Talik, he's leading the entire lobby, 12 and 4. His teammates are setting things up for him wonderfully. I mean, when you run out of time like that, you're basically just trying to get somebody straight at the end of it. But you jump forward all the way to the live fire. And, well, yeah, you say you got your get back on King of the Hill. How about a nice little triple kill from Soul Snipe into the overkill just to kind of bounce back a little bit? I don't know why we have the clip package going against you if you're my guest on this desk right now, but still, hey, you got your get back.
They had all the highlights in the world. We went up 3-1 and they bring it back and we end up winning that King of the Hill 4-3, but here we go. Final minute, game 7, 49-49. We make the call. What are we going to do? They're just sitting there. We make the call. We're going to push top tower. This is our kill to get. We'd rather play for the win than play for the loss. And we'll see here in a second. I actually haven't even watched this from Piggy's POV. We've talked about it 100 times. Yeah, under a minute. I'm pretty sure the final kill doesn't even happen for another 40 seconds. We sit here in this stalemate for quite some time. Didn't know. We've watched this back on tape. Not sure why they backtracked there. I think because we dialed them down to half shields. But just sitting here in this stalemate for 30 seconds after what a crazy series it was. And Precision's like, dude, we got to move. We're going to sit here. We're going to take this. Piggy's like, hey, I have these instant nades that are going to explode and get the guy on stairs. His instas don't work so well. Yak's able to back the guy down, top white. Sitting there just peeking and peeking and peeking. And here we go. Precision goes in. Gets the final kill, Game 7 victory. TSM 0-3 in the Pro League, and we improved to 2-1 is absolutely crazy.
3-1 all the way to the last kill, just about to hit overtime as well. And again, like you saw, it was like a game of inches, right? I mean, if you're TSM, Soul Snipe, you're thinking maybe we can get this camo, maybe we could play through top white like you were saying, and you were saying how you had like the 2 players trying to pounce around that area. But Piggy's POV, I'm glad you got to watch that side by side with me because you know as well as I do, controlling those nades bottom elevator to be able to watch that cross from top glass is everything. Because if you don't control those nades, those free kills going over towards camo, they get that camo, maybe that plays out entirely different. Glad it didn't, considering, again, guess on my desk right now. But still, Nick, thank you so much for your insight.
Glad to be here.
I definitely look forward to the rest of Envy's Halo journey going into SLC.
Thank you very much, sir. Pleasure to be here.
Games are about competition, a way to test our skill and prove we are better. Challenge is in our nature. We need to know what we're capable of. How far can we go? It's a question that drives millions of gamers to push themselves and prove that it's only a matter of sheer will. Ever since first-person shooters came into the esports scene, players have never stopped defying the odds through the most important mechanic of them all: aim. Aim is everything. It's a set of skills that needs to be trained, and this is where science and gaming meet in AIM Labs, the aim trainer that redefines what gaming means, because science doesn't leave anything to chance. Winning is never a matter of luck. Every brief moment of greatness takes constant and unrelenting preparation, and that's exactly what AIM Labs is about. We enable players to thrive and upset the balance. Together, we elevate play.
Shout out AIM Labs, of course. Get yourself some on one of the leading platforms for the cutting edge as far as aim trainers are concerned. AIM Labs can help you reach new heights as well as maybe the Esports World Cup one day. Shout out everything that's happening in Riyadh. Join with me back on the desk now is Chris to go over everything to do with the Esports World Cup. And as far as the club championships are concerned, everybody's still kind of vying for that top space right now. The way it kind of plays out, like if you win a esport, you get 1,000 points. But all these different points are kind of divvied up across a lot of the different esports. Top 8 gets 150. You get like 750 for second place as well. So a lot of people are suspecting Falcons to do well in this situation going in towards the second week of EWC. Still anybody's game.
Yep, and well, we'll have to see how those play out. Envy right now, though, looking pretty good with theirs. We'll take a look at some of those later. As we know, they did have that third place in Sports, so they got some of those points there, and of course, some that we're going to talk about a little bit later. But let's go ahead and jump into one of the big events from over the weekend, and it was going to be League of Legends, just hot off of MSI. They went right over from Vancouver, right over to Riyadh to jump right into the Esports World Cup. And, well, it was a crazy tournament, to say the least. All the teams from MSI +2, HLE joining, as well as C9. And both of those teams trying to fight for their spot. There could only be one winner. And we're going to take a look at how it went down from over the week. And, well, I can't say about this enough, but Gen.G look absolutely incredible. But we had a really good third place game. We're going to go ahead and take a look at T1 versus G2. G2 having a pretty historically bad run at MSI, came back, turned it around, and ended up coming into the third place match versus T1 at Riyadh here. And, well, it just wasn't enough. A T1 who looked a little bit shaky coming into Riyadh turned it up in the third place match.
I mean, keep in mind, like G2 did end up taking that game 2 off of Gen.G, and they very much, though, draft being aside, put themselves in probably the better position to maybe push it into getting in towards grand finals. But going up against T1, who doesn't love a good Faker versus Caps matchup?
Yeah, and this time, though, Faker would be popping off, especially on this Silas here. Looked really good, and some of the plays that we saw on this Silas were just out of this world, and what you kind of expecting out of Faker, but it would be ultimately the team just kind of looked a lot better going into this match. This one here, I love this. We actually got to see his point of view on this Silas play, jumps into there to get the redemption. Not his, though, actually. I want to point out on the way, but go ahead. Good stopwatch into that is going to go ahead and to allow him to get into this. Basically, buy all the time in the world for his team to come. They're going to get the kill. That would end up leading them to the Game 2 number win. It was only a best of 3 for that third place match. They would win 2-0 over G2. G2 just not able to overcome the hurdle of LCK in this tournament. But good job for them making it to that fourth place spot. At least they, kind of redeemed themselves a little bit from MSI. T1, on the other hand, would go back a little bit, though, from that second place MSI to a third place at EWC.
Well, at least they took a map off of Gen.G. So, I mean, we're improving ourselves. Yes. So if we are the LEC, let's put it that way. Because as you were already talking about, MSI, we don't have to talk about it too much, but that just was not it. But shout out G2 for at least getting top 4 at EWC again ahead of the LEC split that's about to be coming. Should be a very fun time, but that sets up grand finals because we did hint that Gen.G did get the better of G2, but anyone's legend on the other side, they ended up 2-0ing T1 to find themselves in grand finals versus Gen.G. They've been waiting for the salty run back ever since MSI, and then they lost map 5 to T1 in the lower bracket. They missed out, but they get it here.
They do get it here, and unfortunately, this wasn't the start. I wish it was, but we have the mascots here. Some fun little play between the panda and the tiger to get everyone pushed out, but here we are into game number 1. Gen.G came out on fire after what I would consider maybe a little bit of a lackluster quarterfinals and semifinals out of Gen.G. They looked a little bit shaky, and AL looked really good, but, you know, it's just the finals buff, and especially coming out, seeing Chovy, especially on this Cassante in game number 1, you know, really brought out the best of this team. Gen.G would end up going up. Not even a high-code game. It just shows the macro play that's coming out of them. They are able to dominate the map, completely run over game 1 from AG.AL, and they would take up a game number 1 lead, ultimately leading into number 2 here. And game number 2 was just almost as bad as game number 1. This is where the kills really turned up, though. Gen.G on this, we have Keen once again. Just look at this Mbessa is going to buffer the stun, jump on to the Annie in the backline and get that instant kill. And right now, AG.AL just kind of look lost.
So I love Chovy on Galio, man. That guy is a real problem. Just when you think he can play a hyper carry, like the Galio is so clutch in so many different moments, trying to keep a lot of his teammates alive. But the Galio is mostly just like also the subsequent counter pick on top of the Nocturne and Investa, given that what they were facing on the opposite side, the Annie and the Jinx. You're trying to play against the 2 hyper carries. Pick any point in time in between all of the 5 legends that were picked for Gen.G, and they can just uproot your front line, kite you to oblivion, and then just absolutely eviscerate you once Keen gets into the back line.
Yeah, and this was a game that Tarzan just didn't look very good on, especially on the bye. He just would try to go in, tried to take kind of fights that just looked a little too forced. Unfortunately, this would put anyone's Legends behind a good bit. As you can see, 19 kills to 5. They would get 20 there to end it. They just were complete like, we're just going to smash this. But then it comes into, and you can't count anyone's Legends out at all. This team is really good, and they're one of my favorite teams to watch in the LPL for a reason. And this would be why. It turns it around. They are on series point, and they're like, we're not going down without a fight. This is where we would see the turnaround from Tarzan on this Gen.G, completely getting it, turning the fight, and then Hope, though. Hope, massive on this Sivir. This fight, I don't think it goes as far as it could, but we would eventually end up seeing this Sivir just going around, making plays, and Hope carrying his team, just completely obliterating Gen.G on it. Eventually, on this one, a little bit later into the clip that we're not going to see here because the clip extends for about another minute or so, he would end up flash queuing to get another kill, just because that is how aggressive they play and that they wanted to assert their dominance. AG.AL, really good. They took that first win on to the second. Game number 4 here, and Tarzan on this Poppy is just a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I'll also shout out just the bot lane as well. I mean, you were sitting there talking just from the ADC perspective, but I mean, the Rel pick kind of set things up in a way that they were trying to set up more and more plays. You got the Rel, then you got the Blitzcrank coming in towards the game. And what was supposed to be a start of reverse sweep, you're starting to see the swagger of AG.AL now in these picks.
Yeah, and I had to throw this clip in here because Rula just absolutely dominated that play on that with the Arcane Storm from the Victor. But it doesn't matter for AG.AL because they're so used to these fights that even if they get taken down, especially in one here that's kind of even for both teams, but allowed Gen.G to kind of stay in the fight, AG.AL is like, okay, well, we're just going to turn another fight on his head here. We see Ruler going in the back trying to get the kills, but they're going to switch and then turn right onto him so they can get the kill onto Ruler. They know that once Ruler goes down, we see the stopwatch from Shanks right in enough time, and he's going to stay alive on that Orianna. It's just completely absurd of how good all these players on AG.AL are and how well they can go into it. But Game 5, and this is kind of what we saw from MSI. So once we get to Game 5, Gen.G has the recipe for winning. They just, somehow they know exactly what to do on these Game 5. We see this kind of a little bit of hyper-aggressive comp come out of AG.AL. We kind of saw that from T1 as well when they played against Gen.G in that Game 5, and it just doesn't really work. These kind of safer comps from the side of Gen.G, they really know how to, especially when they're on that blue side picking it, to get the wins, and especially look at Ruler here on that Xayah. Amazing job by them. They are going to lift that trophy, get Gen.G that first place for those club points, as well as, you know, picking up some of those crushed keys to put in their trophy as well.
Yeah, might as well just melt them all down and make one super trophy because it doesn't seem like Gen.G are losing anytime soon. Beating T1 a handful of times, beating LEC's best in G2 at least on that weekend, and everybody else that they faced along the way for MSI. And as you were already pointing out, their Game 5 draft to still see so many comfort picks right down to a TF in the mid. Like, yeah, I'm down for this, honestly. Gen.G's playbook seems to have no end, even if they are sleep deprived from a very long flight on over. They immediately got on a plane, I'm sure, afterwards, so that way they could prepare for the LCK immediately afterwards. Shout out Gen.G for winning out EWC for League of Legends and 1,000 club championship points that come along with it. But it wasn't the only tournament that we had along the way. Throughout all of EWC, as I'm sure that you're well aware, there's about 5 games happening throughout the entirety of the week. League of Legends might have been the focal front as far as this week number 2 is concerned, but we also had Honor of the Kings playing out as well. And maybe not an immediately clone, but it's still really fun.
Yeah, it is still really fun. And I mean, I went back to watch some of the VODs for it. There were some really great games coming out of some of these teams. And then you look into the playoffs, eventually what we would have, though, we would add some other teams. But they did start with some of their group stages, so they had to go through groups into a last chance qualifier, or what they said the Group King stage, which were those winners, to see how it would be placed for pools. We got some clips for those, so we're going to go ahead and show you how some of the events rolled out from this weekend. And I mean, Team Vitality, one of the teams coming in, was a great job by them, and they would be the 3rd seed for the IKL, and they're now going to be the last representatives. This is them in the groups. Just look at this domination from them. The one-on-one, and they are playing into the series point, did a great job.
Yeah, so these are all mostly group highlights. This is Gen.G going up against Bepboom as well, and what was started off as a very close opening. The thing about Honor of Kings is, comparatively to League of Legends, you can see the gold flock constantly going back and forth, but once you get like that 4K gold league, in League of Legends, sometimes you can flip it, is very difficult to do in a game like Honor of Kings. These games only last about like 11 minutes. If you snowball a game, like in that Gen.G series, one of those games only lasted 9 minutes.
Yeah, and it's fast-paced, as you can see here. Smaller map, especially being on that mobile, that once you get rolling, you get rolling. We're seeing actually here with OG and then Nova going against each other. These teams would actually end up almost facing each other once again, going into the playoff stage. And those playoff stages were set. We'd end up having, again, as I said, Nova and OG will end up playing each other in a rematch that we're going to see in that upper half of the bracket. But 2 teams that we didn't see in those group stages that are big talks about points will be TT, which is Thunder Talk Gaming Global, and then AG.AL, who have an Honor of Kings again here, and as actually considered just the best team in Honor of Kings at the moment.
No Team Falcons as far as the playoff bracket is concerned. We got through all of the last chance matches, which then sets up the playoffs. That is going to be happening from July 23rd into the 26th. So that's currently going to be going on through the 3rd week of the Esports World Cup. You're going to want to make sure that your butts are glued to your seats because Honor of Kings, you do not want to miss out on that. And maybe also join me and Chris and becoming any One Legends fan. If they can end up getting more club championship points, I know that it would feed me and Chris for a few generations to come. But it's a heavy mobile week as far as Esports World Cup is concerned. We also had Dota 2 kicking off, and their group stage actually started all the way back in week 1, picking up a lot of different Swiss-style matches. Finally, it culminated into a playoff bracket, but it was just Team Spirit's tournament to lose.
Yeah, and this is pretty reminiscent of what you would see off of Dota. Eventually, as we see the playoff bracket here, as you alluded to, there was the Swiss stage, group stage, and now we finally have the bracket. Team Spirit, though, great run by them coming out, beating Game Gladiators division. These teams are massive. On the other end of the side, though, you have Team Falcons actually taking out Team Liquid, who's another one of the front runners. If you're looking at the overall standings from Dota throughout this year, I mean, all these teams that we see here is pretty much just kind of a TI, preview of what we're going to see. And it's one of the last big tournaments that will have a majority of these teams playing before TI rolls out in September. So we kind of got to see a little bit of what we're going to see ahead. And then Team Spirit versus Falcon. Let's see how their grand finals played out. And I have to say it was a banger, especially coming out of here. We're going to see a lot, but Utaro playing these carry champions did an amazing job. I think we're going to see him here playing on the Shadow Fiend, but his TA, his Medusa throughout this whole entire grand finals were just really stunning to watch, and his carry potential was just great.
Yeah, it's the Medusa that always sticks out, right? I think that's probably one of the sole prior reasons Team Spirit walked into this, just knowing that they were going to be the better team to possibly win. You say that it was a banger, but it was an all-out just blowout. Team Spirit just completely wiped the absolute floor with all of Team Falcons, who had a very rough route in towards this exact grand finals to even find themselves here. But Team Spirit, you'll see throughout all of this, what makes them the world #1 team and highly regarded is a lot of their focus fire. They do such an adept job of being able to split a lot of the different lines of the Falcons, who were constantly trying to fight from behind, and it always just felt like they were cleaning things up. No stone left unturned for Team Spirit within this first game, or the second game, excuse me, which they won 25-9.
Yeah, that 25-9, I was looking over that as well, and we saw the Storm Spirit playing on that one. Just absolutely obliterated Falcons in that game number 2. On to game number 3 here, just kind of as much as you see the clockwork popping off. Of course, we had the Shadow Fiend, which, of course, if you get him rolling, he's just going to completely wipe the floor with everyone. And again, this is what we're considering maybe kind of that preview into TI here. So here it is. It's going to be Falcons, though. As we're talking about Falcons trying to get those club points as being the winner from the last year on the club points.
That's right.
Getting taken out by Team Spirit here. And you wonder if maybe it's a little bit of that CS rivalry going on a little bit as well. But, you know, they're going to reach out here. And, of course, we have a little bit that could change before TI. But this is going to be a big confidence booster for this Team Spirit team here before going into this big other tournament with the national on the side. Team Spirit, of course, as we saw, they beat Gaming Gladiators, Provision, and then finally Team Falcons in that. But it would be Provision beating Tundra Esports in the third place match. So they're going to get a little bit of those club points as well.
Yeah, Team Spirit along the way only dropped a single map. That one map happened all the way back at the group stage where they lost to Extreme Gaming. And then they went on a flawless run ever since. Team Falcons on the other side, like we already talked about, trying to get those club championship points. They're still going to be able to get that 750 for that second place, which is still very good. Again, they are competing in just about everything. So the more championships that they do not win, maybe it could raise the chances for your Spirits. For anybody else, Twisted Minds maybe is another team as well. Vitality is probably the second most team competing throughout all of that. But still, it's a big win for Team Spirit going in towards TI 25. So it should be a very fun time to be able to keep a close eye on Dota 2. But more MOBAs to be speaking of, but this time with our phones in our hands. Mobile Legends Bang Bang was kicking off through this last week, but it was a women-driven event. The second time that we've gotten an all-women competition back-to-back at the Esports World Cup, and it was a doozy of a game.
It was, and we're talking about Vitality, and well, would be Vitality's time to shine, and these women absolutely ran this tournament, just completely flawless on the run, not dropping a single game, and there it is. I can't believe this. You know, when you think about a run, especially when you're having this level of competition across the board, going completely, you know, flawless across the board, it's amazing. They end up being Food, end up being Liquid, end up facing Gaming Gladiators in that grand finals, and well, they just completely stumped that one as well.
Yeah, the MLBB Women's Invitational, MWI for short, took place again. $500,000 prize pooling. You went from 16 teams down to just the third place, and of course the grand finals as well, where Team Vitality, like you were saying, were able to claim this prize as the all-time champion. But very, very fun stuff coming through all of these different highlights. Again, Mobile Legends Bang Bang is exactly what it sounds like. It is a mobile version of League of Legends. If you've been living under a rock, it is hilariously fun to not only play and watch. And while you're watching all of this, as we were talking about Faker earlier, well, how about Cindy? Cindy was awarded the Grand Finals MVP title, recognized for all of her clutch plays and consistent performance throughout the matches. This Team Vitality team, it felt like it was their tournament to lose. Everything was firing off on all cylinders.
Yeah, and well, we see here them just taking down, and the gameplay is we're taking a look at it. You know, as we said, really reminiscent of League of Legends. We see them playing across, but as much as we were talking about Honor Kings, this is a very snowbally game, being it on mobile. Once you get these kills, once you can get that snowball rolling, you will completely take it, and that's what Team Vitality was able to do. I love this, jumping over the wall and just completely taking them down under their tower, then moving into their jungle. As you said, Cindy is doing such a great job on that hero, and we're going to see the team fights that just take them to the win here for this Team Vitality. And of course, they're going across the map trying to take the neutral objective here. And well, once again, congratulations to this Team Vitality, who do such a great job. They are game #1, taking it for them. And I mean, how can you come back just from something like that? They must feel so proud.
Yeah, it was absolutely dominating. I mean, right here, we're battling it towards the Nexus, 11-1 for the kills. It was domination which is putting it ever so lightly as well. A 4-0 sweep against Gaming Gladiators in the grand finals for Team Vitality to mark their third MWI title and a significant milestone as the first team to achieve a perfect 100% win rate in an international women's MLBB tournament. This win was also awarding for Team Vitality 1,000 EWC Club Championship points, propelling them to the top of the global leaderboard at the time. This achievement was especially meaningful for the team as it comes after a heartbreaking loss in the previous year's grand final, solidifying their dominance and fulfilling their goal of proving their supremacy.
Yeah. And we're talking about, putting them in the same lane as T1 Faker. Well, there was actually a pretty nice picture of both of them together, taking a picture when they're at the Club World Cup. And it's really cool to see these teams, of such high caliber, intermingling with each other, especially across games like this. Mobile games are a lot of fun to watch. We're going to have a little bit more when we talk about week 3 for Mobile Legends. But again, these mobile games are here and they're here to stay and they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And well, there's about to be another conversation for you as well. EWC Free Fire was also concluding this past weekend as well. And well, if you're unfamiliar with Free Fire, if you've ever played a game like PUBG, very, very similar, but with a slight little bit of twist. This is Tencent's open world BR type style. You got walls, you got DMRs, assault rifles, shotguns, bears, beats, oh my. There's so many different things to fight yourself way in towards the final moments for Free Fire. It's a 4v4 battle royale with a max of about 16 teams alive at a certain moment in time. As we're going throughout all of this, it went through a lot of different stages. You'll hear me reference something called Head Start points. This is towards their last chance going in towards their grand finals, literally the last day lobby, to be able to get themselves a certain point buffer to then put themselves a little bit ahead of the rest of the competition. But it all started back on July 16th with the knockout stage. You had 18 teams evenly divided in between 2 different groups playing throughout 12 matches. You had Team Falcons topping their leaderboard because, of course, they were. EVOS Divine is the most winningest team as far as Free Fire is concerned, and there's a lot of different crowd favorites as well. It's a battle royale, so it's truly anybody's game at the end of it.
Yeah, it is. And, you're talking about those points getting ahead. It actually put a lot of points, as we're going to talk about, into the grand finals on that final day to get to that booyah, to try to get that win as well. And I mean, I jumped into it a little bit after League of Legends, and these teams were just relentless on trying to get to that booyah and then trying to get to that winning match point. And we ended up going all 10 rounds.
Yeah, we really did. Grand finals is very, very similar to like Apex Legends. You got your match point threshold almost, the champion rush format. Once you reach 80 points, and you heard Chris say, once you reach a booyah or once you win a game, you end up winning the EWC Free Fire tournament. But you gotta reach 80 points first. EVOS Divine would end up taking everything from the 12 teams that were able to get a head start ahead of them. And keep in mind, EVOS Divine only had 5 points comparatively to Core Memory Esports, who had a resounding 10 but finished towards the bottom of the leaderboard. EVOS Divine, they reached that championship rush threshold at Game 6, and this came by way of their consistent placings from Game 1 through 5, with a win in Game 3 for tournament most points earned, Chris, at a match of 21 points.
Yeah, and you're watching this through and you're thinking that almost every single one of those games after 6, almost any team could win. Consistently afterwards, another team would reach that 80-point threshold and then be put in the running. There was one point where we saw RRQ almost get that, but then ultimately fall. I believe it was on Game 7 or 8 itself, and just the disbelief out of that team after not being able to win that. But then you're sitting there and you're just like, well, this means it's almost anyone's team to win. We're seeing all these teams come in, and as you said, at the end of the day, ultimately, it would be EVOS who would finally get to that match 10 final round and get that win, though.
Yeah, they placed 9th in that game to be able to get that match point threshold, and I'm pretty sure they just threw their bodies in towards the win because they knew that they weren't going to be able to win the entire tournament there. They placed 9th, and they placed 7th no kill points, trying to rat things out. It went south. 3rd, 7th again, and an eventual in Game 10, like Vitality RRQ, they were able to finally reach the booyah, and look at just the resounding happiness on all of their faces. Fear is all gone, elation consuming. There's only so much more emotion you can show. EVOS Esports, with this win at EWC, they take home $300,000 USD and automatically qualify for the Free Fire World Series Global Finals in Jakarta at the beginning of November. Last year's champions, Team Falcons, and current club champions leader still placed 6th, bringing in club championship points as they did all top 8 teams.
Yeah, and as we can see here, we saw Vitality earlier getting one of their wins. RQ, who was so close in that game 7 or 8 to get that win, ultimately just falling short, coming in second. And you have to get that win. And as you said, finally, it didn't matter if they were placing 9th, 7th in those games. They finally got that win in the last one to ultimately win and then make it their way in the course. What better than getting that prize money, but also qualifying for your World Club Championship?
Yeah, amazing stuff. Again, IEM Esports was probably one of the more favored teams to try to do well at this tournament. That is probably 3, if not 4, of the most tenured players in Free Fire that have just about winning everything since its game's inception. Team Falcons, obviously household favorite. EVOS for being only 5 of their points that they were able to accumulate for themselves. Didn't even matter at the end. They were the first point to reach that match point threshold, and the first team to get a booyah on said threshold. So shout out to Free Fire, another mobile game, absolutely banging through Esports World Cup. We look forward to what they have in store in the future. And of course, with the conclusion of Esports World Cup week number 2, that means we have to look ahead now of Esports World Cup. Week number 3 is about to be upon us, and we have the club championships to update you all for. As it currently stands, Team Vitality are sitting up at the top for 2,200 points. Gen.G just behind them at 1,800, and then Team Falcons at 1,450. Team Falcons only have the 1 silver trophy so far. Gen.G off of winning Esports World Cup League of Legends, and then Team Vitality, like we were talking about, Mobile Legends Bang Bang, and then they also have 2 bronze trophies as well, are currently leading by 400 points. But as we are going in towards Esports World Cup week number 3, we have tons of different games to go over. We have so many different teams that are about to be introducing themselves to the club championship conversation as well. Here's that schedule.
Yeah, and what a schedule it is. As we see, of course, they're giving everyone a little bit of an off day today, get a little bit of rest, but we're kicking it back off tomorrow with some StarCraft 2 for their play-ins and their group stage. I'm definitely excited for this. I know Hero is going to be playing, and I'm excited to keep watching him. He's someone I've been watching since my introduction into esports itself. So, of course, good to see some of those players. But then we look at this. Starting on Thursday, we have some Call of Duty.
Yeah, Call of Duty's Black Ops 6 season finally coming to a conclusion. Always feels like we have a month in between all these events. We're trying out loud. Call of Duty back in towards the main stage there for Riyadh. We'll get all the way towards their finals on Sunday again as far as the schedule is concerned. We do follow the normal calendar. We'll show you that Sunday towards the Monday episode. But PUBG Mobile, Mobile Legends Bang Bang, those tournaments will not be completing this week. The tournaments that will have championships we talk about Honor of Kings. That's concluding this week. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 through and through Thursday all the way to Championship Sunday as it normally is. And StarCraft 2 should be concluding on that Friday evening. So it should be a very fun week as far as Esports World Cup is concerned. It's not just one type of game. Like last week we had all MOBAs. This time we're all over the place.
Oh yeah, we are. We're having RTS into FPS, a whole bunch of, playoffs and as well as concluding for some of the mobile games. So we're all over the place. Plus a little bit of that chess in there, so we're moving away from the computer a little bit and playing some good old board games. So, no, I'm just kidding. Chess is going to be amazing. We have an amazing lineup of some of those players coming out. Luckily, no computers to take over this time as well.
Not this time around. Everybody's going to be keeping their very close eyes to see if anybody's going to be upsetting any more world number ones anytime soon. That all has to do for Esports World Cup. We'll go over all of that in its full on Monday's episode in a week's time. You want to make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe to get along with the conversations as we go over that in a week's time. But we still have more Counter-Strike to go over. I hinted it almost feels like 3 hours ago at the top of the show. IEM Cologne is coming towards the end of this month. And although we got a nice little taste from what the main stage looks like from our Asian representation, now the big dogs are coming back out to play. We got Spirit, we got Vitality. I believe Mouse is coming back too. Everybody is going to be looking at a lot of these teams that were competing at FISSURE Playground to potentially knock them down a peg for confidence sake.
Yeah, and we're looking at this. We have we have FaZe back, NIP, Heroic, all these. So we're wondering how possibly TYLOO will be there. How will they go through it? Because they'll be facing off against VP as we see on this side of the bracket. Honestly, looking at this, what we can see here, that's a completely winnable side for them right now.
Yeah, there's no lower bracket being shown right now, just because obviously it does have to populate once we do end up getting there. And I'm sure everybody's sitting there is like, whoa, Andy, you said that Vitality and everybody's there. Well, they're already going to be in the second stage. Darn it, this is the first stage. This is where we're going to be kicking things off this week. And as the tournament continues to progress throughout the week, we'll be giving you all the updates. But household favorites, LatAm, Vamos proud there for Pain Gaming, MIBR, Nip was also going to be there. Astralis' first match versus Bait should be a banger. And then they're actually on the opposite side of the bracket, to your point, of TYLOO going up against VP. And then TYLOO could go up against Complexity as a rematch from the FISSURE Playground. So there's a lot of fun stuff to keep in mind as far as Counter-Strike 2 is concerned. All of that is kicking off in IEM Cologne, so you best wake up early with a cup of coffee so you are prepared for those matches. We also have an update as far as Blast Bounty is concerned. If you're unfamiliar, somebody's going to end up taking a bounty one of these days off of Vitality, probably not, who knows. But teams will now retain their initial seeding going into the tournament. Wager individual teams' amounts regardless of your opponent's amounts, but before it's all matched to the teams, and then it becomes negotiated. Teams then keep the money and that is wagered and no longer will be split into the team's bounty before any money regardless would be split into earnings and bounties. So it's a very distinct change. We'll put the tweet and other different news articles in the description down below so that way you guys know exactly what we're talking about. It's just money things. It's just, Blast wants to give you guys more money. They just want to give you more money.
Well, they want to see someone try to at least take Vitality down. On the opposite end, though, Vitality, you know, they're coming off a little bit of a break, so they're probably going to feel re-energized after everything going through. But, I mean, we're talking about some of these other teams as well. You know, we have Kayoski finally, you know, coming in. We'll have to see how he does into his first international tournament. You know, there's a lot of, you know, people saying, what if? Maybe he's a little bit too early. Maybe he's exactly what they need. But we'll see here. You know, can Donk finally be the one as well to take it through? You know, he's been doing great on his ratings, but unfortunately just been falling a little bit short. You know, we have a lot of what ifs, but Vitality right now, they have that bounty on their head, and we'll have to see if someone can take it.
Vitality was one of the only teams up at the top that did not make a single roster change. Them and Mouse are excluded from the conversation. But the one thing that they do have is a very aerodynamic IGL. Shout out Apex for shaving his head. Finally, it looks like an egg. But what was your most exciting point from this past week? Was it Esports World Cup? Was it the FISSURE Playground? Were you happy to see G get his ice cream? You guys let us know in the comments down below. As always, subscribe to the Global Gaming Network channel to follow along, whether it's for Skill Diff, Queued Up, Today in Esports, or Top 8 Plays. We look forward to seeing you in the next one.